Hey, I'm Jen, and you're watching a poetry show. So this past March, I had the opportunity to attend the Meacham Writers Workshop, which is hosted twice a year by the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. While I was there over the course of several days, I got to hear some amazing poets present their work, and I wanted to share two of those poets with you today and talk about some of their recent publications. The first poet I'd like to talk about is a man by the name of Arthur Smith, who's a professor at the University of Tennessee at Knoxville. His fourth collection of poems, which was published last year, is entitled The Fortunate Era, and it's published by Carnegie Mellon University Press. It's a beautiful collection of lyric poems. His style is a bit traditional. He incorporates incredible imagery into his poems, and so reading each one is like taking a journey into either a beautiful place or into the very specific intricacies of an object, and finding within each of them so much deeper meaning and so much, for so many of the poems, a lot of melancholy as well. This is a collection that is at times very dark, at times very sad as well. He dives into some personal information in his poems about sadness and loss. And so the collection as a whole has a bit of a melancholy feel to it, which still is very uplifting. If you read through the entire collection, all three of the sections of the groups of poems read like a narrative arc. And so the collection begins in a relatively happy place, I guess you could describe it, moves toward very personal and troublesome poems in the middle section, and from there moves to a kind of grace in the third section, where the poet has moved through some of the darkness and some of the sadness and some of the melancholy toward a kind of acceptance that is very, very reassuring to the reader by the end of it. So a highly, highly recommended collection of poems. Again, The Fortunate Era by Arthur Smith. I've included links to one of the poems featured in the collection below, as well as a review of the collection and a link to purchasing the book of poems if you're so inclined. The next poet I'd like to introduce you to is a woman by the name of Hannah Gamble. Her collection is entitled Your Invitation to a Modest Breakfast, and it was chosen in 2011 as part of the National Poetry Series and is published by Fence Books. She is one of my favorite poets who's working today, has an incredible style that I think if you read the collection and some of the work that I have linked to at the bottom here, you'll just be amazed by what she's produced. One of the things I like so much about this collection and about her poetry in general is her language and her style. It's a style that feels right for today. It's contemporary without being overly precious, but at the same time it harkens back to traditional poetry in the sense that she's really seriously trying to convey some deep ideas and not simply navel-gazing as you see in some contemporary poetry. It's unpretentious, her style is very fluid, and she sounds like us today. She sounds like she is, a young woman in her 20s or 30s or 40s without trying to sound like she's writing in 2012, 2013. The other thing I like about her, too, is she is an autobiographical poet in some ways. Some of her poems dive into things that are very personal to her, but she does this without making the reader feel like we're intruding into her life, as some poets can. I get that sense sometimes from poets like Sharon Olds, where I'm being invited into parts of her life that make me a little uncomfortable and a little hesitant. I don't get that sense from Hannah Gamble. There's a respectful distance, despite how much we're being let into the thought processes that she is going through. We're not being told so much that we feel like we are being intrusive. And I appreciate that as a reader. With Hannah's permission, I'm going to share one of the poems from her collection with you here. And if you're interested, I have links to some more of her work at the bottom, as well as a link to purchase this collection, which again I recommend very highly. We have no instincts, only legs to run on. And when one is running, all objects appear blurry. I do not understand how I see some movements of your face and not others. I know that with each flinch you are telling me something. I have forgotten what to ask, because now there is nothing but questions. In an ocean, I can't see the drops of water, and also not the salt. Once you described my temperament as salty, and not in a kind way. Similarly, my nose is longer than yours, and I never knew to feel bad about it. For I was born innocent, and stayed that way until only recently. So I define innocence in my own way, and refuse to listen to people who pay no attention to how I like to be spoken to. I learned to be demanding from the Lord, who asks a lot of me. If I disappoint him, it is only because at night I'm too tired. It is at night that the Lord wants my courage, and he brings his creations to my door to test me. I send them away with words, but often I fear that they will send me away and live in my house where it's warmer, since the human home is the envy of creation. We use our homes to advertise our blessings, yet creation does not feel blessed, and someone told me that's our fault. One last plug. I was fortunate to see both of these authors read from their works at the Meacham Writers Workshop, and I encourage you to look out for writers' workshops and writers' conferences and writers' series in your area. If you live near a college, check out their Department of English to see what kind of authors are coming to read at their universities. Again, usually those are free, and it's a great opportunity for you to see and hear new work. Until next time.